the science of song selection. So guys, what are some of the things you need to consider when choosing songs?
Your team's abilities.
Okay. What do you mean?
You may not want to choose songs that are very high or very low, or not necessarily, but just what your team's capable of doing. You know how your team blends, you know songs that they sing better than others. Your team's ability.
What are some of the things? Your church's beliefs, okay?
Because some songs don't always match up with what your church believes.
Give me an example of a song that doesn't match up with what your church believes.
I'll
Fly Away.
Is that the one when this life is over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Good.
The theme, matching, understand, I mean, not to just read off the paper, but connecting with the pastor or whomever is speaking that weekend or so Sabbath. Considering a lot of times you want to cater to the topic of that Sabbath morning. That way the message can be reinforced.
Have you ever chosen songs with a theme?
Yes.
What's that experience like?
Annoying.
That personally makes you crazy.
It does. It is so much harder to choose songs without a theme because it ends up being, what do I like? What have I done in the past? What did I do last week? Say it again.
What are we comfortable with?
Yeah, what are we comfortable with? When you got a theme, you're so pointed now. You're like, okay, it is forgiveness. Now, I know this song is difficult, but it fits the theme so well. We're gonna make it work, right? You have direction, you have purpose. It makes sense from a theme, and if we think of it in the total context of this theme is how I'm, is driving my devotions. This theme is I'm thinking about testimonies as a result of it. It now begins to sort of crystallize and be a completely different process than, I really like that song. My voice sounds good with that particular song. 10,000 Reasons will be on every single week. If I'm not careful, right? Because I'm going to choose what I like. So that theme is really important. And one of the things that we struggle with is our pastor, and any pastor, for the most part, unless you're like Pastor Cabana. Pastor Cabana would have a 18-week, sermon series. So you knew exactly what was going to happen. But for the most part, we don't have that luxury. And so what I do and what I ask you guys to do is simply come up with a theme. Just come up with one yourself. Whatever you've been inspired to do, maybe in your devotion, come up with a theme yourself. The Holy Spirit does wonders in making sure that whatever the pastor's preaching about, it just dovetails. Just this week, Sabrina chose Potter's Hand, and I was watching online and I was like, that must have been really nice that you guys got together and that whole use me thing. She was like, no, we didn't. It just sort of happened. So that theme is really important. We talked about personal testimony. So, oh well. What's up, Dijon? You got to consider your audience. What do you mean?
If you have a predominantly Caucasian audience or a multicultural audience, you can't sing predominantly gospel music or like black gospel music, or you can't just sing predominantly Christian contemporary if you have a predominantly black audience.
Well, we do that every week, so.
Yeah, that's not necessarily true.
No, but this audience is multicultural,
It
so
is.
it's kind of like, it's a hard audience.
I think, and we touched on this before, but I want to just for a second get back into it, which is the direction of your church versus the content of your congregation. They may not be on the same page, right? So you can have a church in transition, right? You can have leadership, your church leadership or your church mission or your church vision is in transition. So where you are today, you might be trying to move. It's very, Very common for a pastor to come in and say, hey, we're going to try and be more contemporary. Right? We're very traditional and we're losing a lot of people, and we feel like if we were more contemporary, we would attract more people, so we're going to try and be more contemporary. That's classic. And that's a case of my congregation is not necessarily in line, because the congregation would just love hymns. That's just the way they are. But the leadership of the church is saying, hey, wait a minute. I know who's in my congregation, but I'm not going to give them exactly what they want. I'm going to push the envelope and give them something else. So plantation is one of those places where if you looked at the content of the people in the congregation, you would think that the worship would be different. And although it's multicultural, it's still predominantly West Indian. And that usually predicates a certain type of platform experience, which we don't have. I won't mention any names, but there was this person who went to a church, and in this church, they evaluated the worship service. And in the worship service, they said that the songs were all over the map. There were high-intensity songs, right next to low-intensity songs, back up to a high-intensity song, mid-tempo, and there was no consistency in the intensity of the songs. So for normal, natural curves to exist, you need either high intensity to low intensity to high intensity. You could even do a bell curve, right? You can start off slow and meditative, build, and then come back down. But what you don't want are those spikes of, really, I'm a friend of God, down into as the deer panteth for the water, back up into something else. He said that was what he experienced, and it seemed disjointed, and it's hard to really build the atmosphere where there's a flow to the service. It's not good. Okay, here's the challenge. We're going to talk about this for a second. How should you introduce new songs?
The next song we're gonna sing.
No.
Do them a few times.
Okay, so we got do them a few times. Okay.
Maybe sing out, like do a solo with the basic melody of the song. And
Yep.
have your praise and worship team follow you, which kind of indicates for the rest of the congregation to follow you.
Let's say you have 4 worship leaders. And let's say you 4 worship leaders don't really get together and talk a lot, right? What are the chances that you're going to, as a for your congregation, really hit the mark with delivering consistently new songs that are going to stick with your congregation?
Unlikely.
It's not likely. Because that sort of happens with us, right? Dane has his songs that are Dane songs, right?
That's true.
There are the Sabrina songs that are, are Sabrina songs. And you're going to have it. It's not because people are sort of gravitate to what fits their style. But when it comes to new songs for the congregation, you just got to be really careful with that, because I just read that the congregation cannot absorb more than 10 new songs a year. Anything more than that, no traction.
Could there ever be a time as leaders you guys come together and you have a genre of songs that everyone's interested in? Because I always wondered about that. And just make a song selection that everyone could cumulatively do together, learn together at the same time. So when the musicians learn at the same time, they're not learning like 10 different songs from 4 different, so they're learning 4 different, and it becomes challenging for everybody involved.
Yeah, so back when we had leaders that were more stable and here, what we would do, we would, on mass praises, we would introduce the songs for the quarter.
Yeah, the CDs.
Yeah, right, you remember that, right? We would introduce it, and you all knew what we were going to do, and the leaders got together and decided what those songs were going to be. so that we were all on the same page. Because what happens is if you choose new songs in isolation, and you choose a song that, Sabrina does great at, and I'm not comfortable with, and we can't all buy in on, it's only going to be her week that song gets done. And if Sabrina leaves, that song is gone with Sabrina. Right?
Yeah.
So we got it. Not that every song needs to be singable by every person, but you need to keep the congregation in mind when you're planning out these songs. What are some of the ways you can ease the tension of new song introduction? Some of the other ways, because you mentioned.
On the platform?
Yeah.
On the platform.
Because new songs are the most difficult time for a congregation. They don't know it, you know it, and they're staring at you in the eye. And I don't know about you as a praise leader, but I hate
You have to talk
staring down and looking at blank faces looking back at me.
Bas-
What'd you
to them. You have
say?
to talk to them.
Yeah, I was
You
gonna
gotta
say,
Encourage
encourage
them.
them.
A testimony, tell them.
why the song touches your heart in some way and why you just feel the congregation should know it and so on and so forth, and just make them feel like they need to kind of sell it.
That all goes under coaching.
Coaching.
Yeah.
Coaching the congregation.
Yes.
Singing, you mentioned singing it beforehand, maybe like a solo. One of the things that we did was we did it as an afterglow song
Yeah.
the week before. So that they got used to it. We would play it for the countdown, or we didn't have a countdown, but when it was time for Sabbath school to end, we would play that song
Oh, as,
so they begin to hear it.
yeah.
If possible, if it was the type of song that we could, we'd have somebody do it as a solo. Right? Back when we had special music. We don't do that anymore. So these are all ways that you can expose the congregation to it without even really, with no skin in the game for them. They just hear it, they get familiar with it. But what is that going to take? What needs it? You need planning. Because you need at least 2 teams engaged in this that's going to learn it. You need the people that are going to do it for Afterglow, and you're going to need the praise leader for the next week also learning and executing that song. So the praise leaders have to be on the same page with this. So you guys are going to have to be a team as opposed to lone wolves, which is what we are right now. It's sort of every praise leader for themselves. And what about your musicians?
Yeah, no, their capabilities.
Right? If they can't, you were talking about if you got a basic pianist and you want to do something really complicated, you might have to swap your song selection around in order to match their capabilities. What about your capabilities?
Yeah, I was going to say something you just can't, I can't.
Simplify everything then.
You can't do it.
Or you simplify it.
We
But
struggle
my
with.
question with that is if maybe you can't do it, maybe somebody on the team could do it. So it's not about just you being able to lead out a song. It's also about, as a team, what everyone can put forth as a form of worship.
You're good. You're good.
So I am charged with, as a leader, making sure that there is somebody that I'm training and pouring myself into. I have to. That's just discipleship. That's a part of our core values. Every leader must have a trainee to pour themselves into, because when you teach something, you learn differently. Right? It resonates more when you teach something versus somebody who's telling you something. So as a part of your leadership process, you will be identifying your sub-leader, your number 2, and be held accountable for, are they being groomed to take your place when the time is necessary? But the point is, you're going to be responsible, just like I'm responsible for training and building you guys up. You're responsible for knowing the people on your team, knowing their capabilities, knowing where they're strong, where they're weak, and who is your number 2 in case you get that $1 million recording contract. I was gonna use get hit by a truck, but I thought, man, that's awful.
That is
Man,
No,
that is
she
terrible.
said, or just $1 million.
Right?
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a
It don't have
recording
to be a
contract.
recording, but just a
Maybe I
minute.
personalized it a little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
Do you guys ever get notes from people saying, "Can you do this song?"
Yes.
Actually, requests, congregational requests. Why don't you sing
You get
this?
those?
All the time.
Well, how do you get them?
Actually, I did
People
one
walk up to me
Months?
with a piece of paper and say, "Here, do this song."
When
They
does that
write down
happen?
this last
Three
one I got
months
was
ago?
this person wrote down the YouTube link on a piece of paper.
I got
A
lot of
two three
each
Z
JK2
three. I'm like,
score.
either verbally, and I got something from somebody on Twitter.
Yeah.
They gave me the link to the video, the
Yeah.
names of Jehovah. I was like, okay.
Actually, they would love this.
I think we need to send out a thing on Facebook.
there you go. That's where I was headed. So I think one of the things that we are missing is congregational feedback, a feedback loop. Right now it's happening anecdotally and sporadically. We have the platform now to say, all right, and this might even drive interest in the page and engagement in the page to say, hey guys, if you have an idea for worship, a song that's on your heart, just go to facebook.com/plantation praise and worship and say, this is the song I want. We will prayerfully evaluate each one.
Why not just,
It's
All right,
not a
so,
regular.
but the point there is, we need to create a feedback loop for people because people, think about it for a second, they are worshiping outside of church. If they've gotten to the point where I want to share this with everybody else, you know what's been happening in their personal life. Somehow the song has touched them, they've been moved by it, and what an amazing testimony it would be if we were able to make that happen on the platform. Some of the songs that we sing nowadays, I would have never on my own, ever, like There's Power in the Name of Jesus, I would never choose that song, right? But because there's a variety of people and a variety of leaders and their skills, that type of song can be done. So I like the idea of having that feedback loop and making sure that we get that information back. So I'm going to put you in charge of figuring out a post to get responses and a way to
What do
fix
you
our
want it
church
to say?
website. Hey, have you been inspired? Have you ever wanted us to do a particular song? Keep in mind, we're Christians. You know. So what are some of the hazards of too many new songs?
Overload.
Concerts.
What happened?
Concerts.
So during song selection, when you're crafting a set of songs, how many new songs should you put in your set?
One.
Probably one. Two, you're going to be in big trouble. Two, you're going to be in big trouble. And if we really do this the way that we're supposed to do it, and we're working with one another in the song selection, we should have a plan for how we introduce those songs anyway. So my goal would be each one of you as praise leaders, choose 3 songs that you want to do for the rest of the year. We bring them all together. We put them in a pool. We listen to them. We pray over them. We look at what the balance of the calendar looks like. Do we have youth Sabbaths, communions, things like that, and see what's the best song to put forward, right? So start thinking about doing that now. Okay, and by start thinking about, do that. Give me 3 songs that you would want to do for the rest of the year. Okay, and for new music that you're choosing, what are some of the considerations that you need to keep in mind for new music? New music.
Again, the congregation,
Mm-hmm.
musicians, the singers.
This is a big one.
What did she say?
How complicated is it? Right? So, are the melodies relatively consumable? Right? So we don't want 3-phrase repetition, right? Because that's going to be too basic. But at the same time, if we've got these 10-verse songs, it gets really hard to manage. What is the God quotient? When you're thinking of these songs, what is the God quotient of the song? Because a lot of the songs nowadays you might not know, are we really singing about God? And you gotta be careful too, because a lot of songs sing about worship, how I want to worship. And that's not really saying anything from a worship congregation standpoint. How I long to worship you. Okay, this is worship time. You are worthy, right? So I don't want to glorify the act of worship just because it's worship, right? Worship can be like idolatry, especially nowadays. We can worship and not worship God. So it's not just am I saying God or not, it's also the subject matter of the song. There's an army rising up. So yes, there is an army rising up. Just think about for the proportion of the lyrics to the song, does it really represent worshiping God? We can talk about our army being risen up, and that is a statement of fact, hopefully prophetically, but is it really worshiping God? And we've talked about what worship is. It's ascribing worth to God. It's saying, you're amazing, you're worthy. We got to be careful that even in these songs, if it's not confusion between am I singing to someone or I'm singing God, you still got to be mindful of what are you saying in the songs?
I'm glad you brought that up because I always wonder in the art or in worship, is it possible? Well, if you're focusing on love, like if love, I don't know, like one song that comes to mind, your love never fails, never gives up, never wins. Like, is that too far out of the context, or would that be considered a form? You know what I mean? Like something that would pull everyone in to recognize God is love, or is it?
Yeah, I think some songs are definitely 100% about God, even if they don't literally say God. Okay. Right? So the attributes of God that are being used would never be used for a person in some songs. Now, and just think about that song. Could I easily apply it to someone else other than God? Mm-hmm. And if I could say, you know what, my boyfriend in college was just like that. His love never gave up. I wanted him to let me go, but geez, that guy was a little handsy, you know? So just think, why are you shaking your head? So if you could, without too much mental exercise, say, that could be my ex-boyfriend, then your God quotient of the song is probably not where it needs to be. Let me give you some insight into my song selection process. So I have these, I'm old school, right? So all this stuff is now digital, but. All right, so we talked about stories, things to color a song about. These are hymns and inspiring stories about 600 hymns and praise songs. Right? All right, so when the writer of this song his name was Scriven, and he was a young man in Ireland, and his fiancée accidentally drowned on the eve of their wedding. Jeez. Soon after this, he set sail for Canada. He seemed destined to live his life alone with Jesus as his only close friend. In Canada, he determined to be a friend to those in need, and he became known as the Good Samaritan of Port Hope. He wrote, "What a friend we have in Jesus." He never intended to publish the hymn. He wrote the words to accompany a letter he sent to his mom when she died. So these are really powerful stories that these hymns have been. So if you tell one of these stories before one of the hymns are sung, right, that's...
You win them over.
You win them over, right? And it's not just hymns, even these for some contemporary praise songs in here as well. Now, if you Google, the song, you'll probably get this, the story behind it. But this is a great resource that I use to tell the story behind the hymns. A lot of times we don't do hymns because we feel like it's not connecting as much as the newer songs do. And part of the reason why it's not connecting is because we haven't done our homework really. And a lot of times we sing songs, the hymns, anticipating that it is not going to connect. So we sing it like, oh God, our hell, and let's get through this, right? And when you're trying to get through it, your congregation knows it. But if you sang it with life and meaning and energy, and maybe you revamped it or added a refrain or added a contemporary beat to it, your congregation would love it. I know Plantation does. So. I also use this, as my mom would call it, a 7-day advantage hymnal. So I'll go in here and choose songs out of this. And also they have some stories and some exhortations in the back as well. So if you want to say, if you want to choose something to say before a song, this is a great place to come back and just get an excerpt. And it's within subject, right? So whatever, you could use this, and I have used this to come up with a theme. Christ and his suffering, the Trinity, praise before the throne of God. So this would be a great place to go in and come up with a theme. We are in a church that does have a few people that look like me. And a lot of times we don't get this, right? Which is sometimes just old spiritual. And so I'll look through here and I'll see, lead me to Calvary. King Jesus is a listening. This is a listening. All right? Somebody's knocking at your door. I look through this. And also I went and I bought just a worship hymnal that's not Seventh-day Adventist specific, because there's just popular hymns that are in here that just aren't in here. So I try and cover all my bases, and I've got all of it. The last thing that I do is go to PCO. Go to PCO to see if there is a theme that's already been done, right? And you can develop that theme further. You can get a sense of what someone has already thought through in terms of putting together something. Change it, edit it. You don't need to recreate the wheel a lot of times, right? If there's something out there, you can tweak 2 or 3 songs that you know have impacted you. That's a great place to start. They also have new music there. So you can click on song charts. There's a button when you go to songs. If you click on songs, you go down, you click on the button, and it will tell you the top 20 songs for a given month. And you can go back into time. I think it shows you like year-over-year comparisons of the popularity of a song. So it'll be like plus 58 if it's really hot compared to last year.